Now, joining us in the studio, we have with us Professor Kim Hyun-wook from the Korea National Diplomatic Academy to share his thoughts. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's start by going over that tweet by President Trump. It was his first response to Pompeo's trip to Pyongyang. And he said, I quote, "I have confidence that Kim Jong-un will honor the contract we signed, and even more importantly, our handshake. We agreed to the denuclearization of North Korea. China, on the other hand, may be exerting negative pressure on a deal because of our posture on Chinese trade. Hope not!" exclamation mark. So despite Pompeo coming back from Pyongyang with very little, Trump has said he basically trusts Kim. What do you make of these comments?
Yes, I think Pompeo's visit to Pyongyang was disappointing. The U.S. and all the experts and media expected that some kinds of initial phase of denuclearizing North Korea would be possible with Pompeo's visit to Pyongyang, but the result and outcome was only the extension of the ongoing discussions with North Korea about denuclearization. So we were kind of curious of what the Trump's response would be, and his tweeting was that he still believes in Kim Jong-un's intentions for denuclearization. All the trust-building measures between two leaders in Singapore, Trump still supports it. I think thinking about the domestic issues, domestic situations of President Trump, I think he still thinks that this kinds of two countries deal to denuclearize North Korea is worth dragging to the point in which there will be a midterm election in November. So I think according to Trump's calculations, I think North Korea-U.S. deal and negotiations relations, I think would be beneficial to his domestic interest, I think. But at the same time, what he mentioned was about the China thing, the trade war issues and all that kind of thing. So I think his main concern now may be different from last year, but now his main concern, main target is bashing China, not North Korea. So maybe dealing with North Korea would be really useful tool and leverage to bash China and domestic political benefit for Trump. But I think his main target to bash is China.
Do you think those accusations are justified about China, I mean?
Yeah, I think, one of the negotiation skills of President Trump is that, okay, let's use North Korea as important excuses to bash China. That happened even from last year. I mean, the China being a responsible country for North Korea, China to have to do something, cooperate with the international community sanctions on North Korea. So whenever North Korea did some test last year, China became a target of Trump because, okay, you China, you did not do your responsibility. So that's why North Korea is still, testing their nuclear weapons. So you have to be the one that should be punished. And now, because of all the trade, surpluses of China to the United States, now two countries began the trade war. And I think this, at the same time, is a very important pathway that will be justified because of the China-North Korea close relationship, which is hampering the current deal between North Korea and the United States.
Do you think Trump may be also sending a message to North Korea and Kim Jong-un, saying basically, we know China's behind you, you better watch out what you do?
Yeah, I think this is very clear signal. Okay, this is to make the two countries' relationship to be decoupled by punishing and by bashing China in trade terms. I'm not sure what's going to be the outcome of trade war, but many experts says the United States is definitely, in a more favorable term vis-a-vis China. According to the pathway of the trade war between two countries, I think North Korea will finally realize that, okay, because of U.S. being the possible victor in the trade war, maybe leaning towards China would not be a good strategy to deal with the United States. So I think this is a very good strategy to make North Korea to focus more on the United States rather than Russia or rather than on China.
Do you think China really would deliberately interfere with the U.S.-North Korea relations? I mean, why would they?
Okay, this is, from the surface, this is the deal between the United States and North Korea about denuclearizing North Korea. But we have to look at this from the angle of regional angle, I mean, Northeast Asia. Because the Korean Peninsula has been, especially North Korea, has been an important buffer of China vis-a-vis the United States. Whenever U.S. involvement in this region have been very active, the value of North Korea important buffer to China became very high. When U.S. was away from the Asia region, China really did not care much about North Korea. It tried to tame North Korea. So now is the time that Trump, with its recovered economic capability, is now trying to come to Asia more actively, bash China more actively. So from the Chinese perspective, North Korea, a buffer, is becoming more and more important than the past.
During Pompeo's visit to Pyongyang, we all thought he'd be seeing Kim Jong-un, but Kim Jong-un failed to turn up. He gave some excuses. Kim Jong-un was also missing a few days previously when he didn't turn up to the inter-Korean basketball games. And we all know how much he likes basketball. So he was missing for a few days, but now he's finally appeared back on North Korean state media. They reported him visiting a construction site and a potato farm in Samjeong County. Does that show where his priorities lie right now?
This is not the first time that he has been, going over to the border area between North Korea and China. I think 3 or 4 previous trips to the border area has been made by Kim Jong-un, which is, making it clear that he is trying to initiate very actively the border-to-border economic cooperation with China. Maybe China have promised to North Korea that, okay, you have to follow the rules of China when you deal with the United States. In return, we can give you a lot of economic support, including development of the border area and making them as one of the special zone of economic development for North Korea. So I think in order for that kinds of cooperation with China, I think Kim Jong-un has been series of trips to the border area now, and maybe this will be good for North Korea. Maybe this will be a signal that two countries' relationship is going back to the traditional relationship. But I don't think this is a good signal for a very constructive denuclearization negotiation between the United States and North Korea.
There again, China's influence in North Korea's economy, very important. But on the other hand, Pompeo has also offered a carrot as well, saying he was recently in Vietnam, he highlighted how much the economic benefit between the relationship with the US and Vietnam has helped Vietnam become a prosperous country, and saying, North Korea, you can be the same. I mean, what do you think of those comments?
This kinds of remarks by the US high-level official have been made already. Pompeo said this several times. I mean, and President Trump also said this several times. North Korea will be, the future of North Korea will be like South Korea. Will have economic development in the U.S. Private firms will be investing in North Korea, all that kind of things. But he said that one more time, right after his failed negotiations with North Korea when he visited Pyongyang. So I think this is another remark of giving positive incentive to North Korea. But another thing I think that needs to take more note of, I think, is that he mentioned of simultaneous negotiations. He said that he will achieve, restoring relationship, giving security guarantee, and denuclearization. 3 things should be implemented simultaneously. So that means that the U.S. is now officially accepting the North Korean formula and approach to denuclearization, step-by-step simultaneous approach to denuclearization and provision of security guarantee to North Korea. So I think this might be, a good incentive to North Korea and a good signal for a further and future, good outcome of the negotiation.
Pompeo cited the comparison between Vietnam and the US. But is that actually comparable to US and North Korea going forward?
Yes, when you look at the history of two countries, they definitely had a war with the United States, the US and Vietnam War and Korean War. But the Vietnam case was that, okay, even though there were still a frozen relationship Vietnam tried to, change the relationship, return the remains of the United soldiers in Vietnam to the United States. And I think this became important, momentum for the development of two countries' relationship. And ever since that, they have began to, the U.S. was very active to develop Vietnam, change that economic system into capitalistic. So I think the Pompeo's remark is that, okay, we'll do the same thing that we did to Vietnam to North Korea. I think this will be very good, incentive to North Korea.
One issue that we thought would be resolved when Pompeo went to North Korea was the return of the remains of the Korean War U.S. soldiers who died in the Korean War. But that now seems like further working level talks are going to take place on Thursday. But what do you think is the holdup? Why do you think North Korea is holding back on giving these remains back? I mean, it almost seems like they're keeping them hostage.
We can think of this in two ways. First, it's North Korean strategy. North Korea has been always tried to make one issue into several, making attention of the United States into many agenda and making a dragging time period which is needed for negotiation and extending the time period. I think this time denuclearization, return of remains, and also destroying the missile engine testing site, all these issues has been separately put into each different panels for discussions. So I think this might be a North Korean strategy. Second thing we can think of is that North Korea is really disappointed. I mean, North Korea thinks that, okay, we did so many things to the United States, but the U.S. is not doing much. They're only insisting denuclearization of North Korea. So North Korea is really angry, and they're not doing anything, and they're not dealing anything with the United States. They're just postponing and dragging all the issues. So that's the result of all these so-called salami strategic, negotiation outcome.
But then, let's say the working level talks go great, and the North Korea return the remains of the U.S. soldiers. What happens next? Doesn't that mean U.S. have to give something back in return after that?
Well, I think this would not satisfy North Korea. These issues and these agenda are just a subsidiary and non-important. These are important, but these are not main issues. Main issues is denuclearization and security guarantee. These two should be swapped by two countries. So I think when Pompeo visited, what North Korean Foreign Ministry spokesman said in his discourse was that the declaration of the end of the Korean War should be something that North Korea is wanting from the United States. So I think the next step when two countries' working level discussion is continuing is that denuclearization from one hand, and the other hand, I think the end of declaration of the end of the Korean War. These two issues, I think, would be discussed simultaneously and swapping with each other.
So you're saying the remains won't necessarily have anything to do with the denuclearization talks? They're kind of separate from
that will be a very good incentive, but that are not the main issues that U.S. is expecting.
Thank you very much. Well, we'll keep watch of those talks that are happening later this week, and we'll see what comes out of them. Thank you for coming in today.
Okay, thank you.